everybody. It's your man James, Mystical Crime Treasures, back again with some more video action for you. Today's another jaunt into the past where we pick out a back issue of mine and we talk about why it's great. And for those of you who don't know what Why It's Great is all about, it's where I take an issue from the back catalog of stuff I've read over the years and tell you why I think it's so awesome and why you yourself should want to check it out. And today's one is a little bit special for some special reasons I'll get into in for a second. But before I do any of that, as always, I'd like to thank you all for joining me today and say that if you like what you see here, drop a like down there on the video to help out the algorithm. It's always appreciated. Also, if you got any comments on the book or anything else I talk about here today, drop comments in there because I always like to hear from the folks. And, make sure to share out some links and bring in some new people because I'm always like to get as many people to check this stuff out as I can. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe so you yourself don't miss any of the content that I'm putting out around here. Now, in case it wasn't enough of a giveaway, my attire could tell you what we're going to be talking about today as far as the title of the book. But the reasoning for this is I'm sure, like I said, guys know last week I posted about the passing of my best friend, of 41 years, and his favorite character probably was Batman, and so I decided, in further tribute to him and just a little something I can do special, I was going to do a Batman comic for Why It's Great this week. Another just a small little tribute to him. Because like I said, he's more than anyone is probably responsible for me being the comic geek that I am today. And so, whether you want to cast blame or cast thanks for that, he's the one that was responsible for that more than anybody else. So I just wanted to do this. This is again just one little special, more little tribute to him, from me to him, for all the years of friendship and everything else. But today we're going to get into our book now, and now it's Batman 433. The part one of the storyline called The Many Deaths of the Batman. Now, this is a special one for me because, this is like the time I love Batman best, the late 80s. This is like 1989, I believe this was. It started in 1989. But, like all around this story is great stuff. You have the year before, with like Death in the Family and 10 Nights of the Beast by Jim Starlin. You got after this, you have year one and, A Lonely Place of Dying, where we meet Tim Drake for the first time, by Marv Wolfman. All around this storyline is these other great epic Batman storylines of the time that like everybody knows and everybody loves. But like this one, people don't seem to give it any credence the way they do all those other stories around it. So that's why I want to do this one, because I felt it was a story that needed to get a little love, a little attention, get people to check it out. So, and like I said, it's as I always do, I try to get ones that are a little bit more in the affordable range. So that's why I don't do the big key issues. You don't see me do the big storylines, because those are usually the expensive books when you go out to pick them up. But this one should be relatively inexpensive. And again, considering the talent on this book, I'm surprised it flies under the radar with all those other great Batman stories of the era around them. So let's get on into this. Batman number 433. And it's special because the writer, John Byrne, who wrote this, by the way, he's the writer. And he took a page out of Larry Hama's book. And this issue of Batman is almost entirely silent. There's one panel with one blurb of dialogue, and the rest of the book is silent. So he's taking a page out of Larry Hama's book from that classic G.I. Joe number 21 and giving us a silent issue of Batman. And again, it's a really interesting way to start off this storyline. So again, we're going to really get into this here. And so we're going to get me off the screen because we don't really need me for this because it's never been about me. And we'll bring up the issue. So let's go ahead and share the screen. And here we go. Batman 433, part one of The Many Deaths of the Batman. And again, just look at that image right there. And this is if we can big it up here. I'll show you right here. If you look at here, it's not his usual signature, but right here, B-Y-R-N-E, Byrne. So this is a John Byrne cover. He wrote it and he did the cover image. And again, just look at that image. Look at this. The knife plunged right between the eyes of the cowl. I mean, is there anything, more visceral than something like this, I mean, what a way to set up this story. And like I said, this is one that flies under a lot of people's radars. They don't pay attention to this one. Like I said, everyone knows about the death of Jason Todd Robin. Everyone knows about the KG Beast. Everyone knows about, year three with the origins of Dick Grayson's Robin. And then, of course, Lonely Place of Dying introduces us to Tim Drake. But in between all of that is this story that nobody seems to take note of. And like I said, with an image like this as your cover to the first part. I don't see how that's even possible, but yet somehow it is, I guess. So, but let's get on into the issue and check this on out. You can see right here, it's a dark and stormy night. I guess that's how we'll have to put that right there. A dark and stormy night. Here's chapter 1, period of mourning. Again, like this is some of the only dialogue you're going to see in the entire issue is the title right here. So it's just another night in Gotham. You know, you see police out on the roads. They're rushing probably to a crime area. Of course, you know that's par for the course in Gotham City. And you know, I like the angles that Aparo uses here. You know, there's the big cityscape shot with the lightning, and then you know, getting in closer, you can see in between the buildings, and there's the police, and then the close-up shot. And you know, I like the little bit of humor here. You know, somebody getting splashed as someone who that actually happened to one time. Maybe I'll tell you guys that story someday. That happened to me one time, only not with a police car, with an 18-wheeler. Yes, so it's a funny story, but I won't get into that right now. But again, I am one who understands how this guy right here must feel, because that was me at one point. I had that happen to me. So the police are on the way. They arrive at the scene. They see the guy. The guy looks like a homeless dude, telling them what's over there. They go to investigate, and again, look at that shocked look. Look at that's great face right here by Jim Aparo. I mean, this is why he is the definitive, Bronze and Copper Age Batman artist in many people's minds. I mean, just a great shot like this of this police officer with the flashlight and the look on his face. What could cause a look like this? Well, we're about to find out. And there it is. Look at that. Wow. Crucified Batman. Look at that. That is. I mean, again, this is the power of Jim Aparo, of folks. Along with Mike DiCarlo doing the inks. Some people, they say they don't care for Aparo being inked by DiCarlo, but I always like this team. I thought this is like probably one of the best Batman teams of modern times. At least for me, modern times back in the 80s. But yeah, this is just great. I mean, I love the dilapidated look. I love the drivingness of the rain. I love that. Right over here to using the color hold to get like the backsplash, like when it hits and then it spurts out because it hit something solid. Just look at that. Just so you feel like you're in the middle of the storm. And I love that, even a little touch like this, like the clothesline hanging outside. Again, I remember this stuff growing up as a kid. This is stuff I can remember. And, you see these things. So very fun, the box with this end up, just little touches like that bring, an authenticity to the scene, to the setting. And again, just that image right there, the circle of light on a Batman that has been crucified. I mean, again, is there any kind of more iconic image than this? I mean, imagine owning the original art to this page. That is insane. So of course, they get him. Of course, they're going to get him down. They radio in the ambulance, to get him to the hospital. As the rain continues. Again, the setting is so good. A rainy, stormy night, and you see a Batman that has been crucified. I mean, that's just how much better can you get that? I love, and you still get the sound effects. No dialogue, but you do see sound effects, and I like that too. Nice little touch. Then of course we get into the hospital. It's total chaos because this is not just any victim of a crime. This is the Batman, and it's just, you can, like, again, look, you see right here the faces. You're going to see a lot of this in this issue. Is Aparo showing off his skill at expressiveness with a face, which is something that you don't often think about when you're reading a superhero comic or even comics in general. You don't pay much attention to stuff like this. But it matters in a story like this where you have no dialogue. It's almost like silent movies, their gestures, their body language, their facial expressions. It all had to convey the emotions and the thoughts that they couldn't express in sound. I think a lot of in the modern era with our talkies, we kind of forget that stuff. But an issue like this reminds you of how much of a visual medium comics truly is, and how much work it takes to get expressiveness like this, in an issue. So there it is. They go to their routine. They do what they do to try to save him. This one guy goes to take off the mask, and of course he's stopped immediately. Like, you can't do that. This is Batman. We got to protect his identity. We can't, expose who Batman is. again, and I like this too. The guy he's probably just acting on instinct. Because the face is covered. We need to get this off the face. We need to see if there's any damage to the head. If he's bleeding there. If it could be contusions or concussions. But the guy reacts instinctively. No, don't do this. You can't do this. It's Batman. You cannot reveal his identity. And again, I like so it kind of shows you that even though a lot of people fear the Batman, there's also people who respect the Batman. And I like this touch in there. It's a great moment. This is one of those great little moments you never think about. But again, if it had dialogue in it, probably wouldn't be as impressive. But with just the visuals, it's much more visceral, and I like that about it. And of course, you can see his pulse rate's not doing well, so they start to administer the paddles, and of course, it's not enough. The Batman is dead. You can see right here. So right here. Look at it. Look at the downtrodden look. They couldn't save him, and they probably feel this way not just because people who are lifesavers like that would feel bad for anybody, but this is a guy who they know who's done a lot of good for the city, and now that he's dead, who knows who's going to replace the Batman fighting the criminals on the streets to keep us all safer? Who's going to do that? Who's going to take that place? So, it's a loss beyond all losses. So they load him up, they take him down to the morgue, as you would do in any hospital. And while we can see the people are in there, they're all upset. They're all this dude who was there is upset, and in comes our slimy sort of a scrounger here from the media establishment, that we all don't trust nowadays. And again, just you can see again, look at the expressiveness in the face. It kind of tells you everything you need to know about this guy without having a single word said. Very, very good stuff. And so he goes down to investigate at the morgue. He pays off the guard so that he can get in. And then, opens the drawer and he sees it's Batman. And of course, he does what all these, paparazzi types do. He doesn't have any moral compass to tell him what to do. He just knows this is like the biggest thing ever, and I get to be the one to exploit it. And again, even here, even he is shocked at first because he can't believe it. I can't believe that Batman is dead. It's crazy. And so he takes it to his editor, who's obviously shaken himself. But of course, the world goes on and the news goes out. Batman dead. That's crazy. And again, this is real life. This is what would happen in reality. If we had a Batman in real life and he died, this is exactly how it would go down. The media would be all over this. You couldn't get away from it. They couldn't help themselves but go after the sensationalism of a story like this. And, because they do it already in the real world. And again, this is another thing that I liked about this. Byrne brought in the touches of the real world, the downtroddeness of the people who couldn't save him, the sleaziness of the guy getting the picture, the apprehensive, but, I got to do it anyways of the editor here, and how this all would go down. This all feels real. And again, that's what makes this so potent in this story, even without a lick of dialogue, is the fact that just these images, they portray exactly what would be true in real life. And that makes it even more potent, more pronounced, more poignant. So, of course, as the news spreads out, Penguin finds out about it, and he's angry, most likely because, he didn't get to kill the Batman himself. Someone has now taken that prize from him, and he's angry. But, again, the reaction is not all the same. Two-Face also sees it, flips the coin, comes up scarred, and he celebrates. So you can see even among his enemies, there's all kinds of different emotions going around. It's that's how much of an impact Batman had on this city. Again, this is what this shows you, the impact that one man can make like that. And then, of course, Dick Grayson, he finds out. He's there with Starfire, and you see first it's anger, and then the sorrow, the pain. Just right there. Probably feeling guilty. If I was there, I could have done something. Something I'm a little familiar with myself right now. So this this, when I read this really hit me, these two panels right here. You know, and again, it shows you the connection that him and Dick have, how strong that truly is. That when he hears he's dead, it devastates him. So then we get the next morning, the sun is out, Alfred's doing his thing as he always does, you know, probably the same routine that, you know, just, you know, same routine, just a different day ending in Y for Alfred. That's how that's what this plays as, you know, just the normal routine that he knows to do every day. But then he sees the paper and he sees the headline, and all of a sudden the routine is over. The routine is done. And he goes around, he looks in his bed, he's not there. He goes down, he's not in the cave. Is it true? Can he really be dead? You know, because here it is, he's not in his mansion, he's not in the Bat Cave. Where else would he be? And they've got pictures of him being dead. So then we go on, and at some other city. This is because you can see it's a different skyline. Again, I liked how they did that too. You know, you saw the skyline on the first page. It's obvious Gotham City. And then here's one, but it's not Gotham City. So they made a difference. And, you know, it's a police convention. Jim Gordon is there. You know, someone comes in. They tell him news. And again, look at that expression. Like just disbelief. You know, he just, as it being whispered in his ear, is being told. So, you know, just again, this is another person very, you know, not close in the sense of like emotional bonds, but like he knows this man, you know, like a coworker type of thing. You know, I've been around him a lot. So, of course, he goes back, rushes to the hospital, and this is where we get our only bit of dialogue. He's shown the body, and then it's get out. And I understand why he did this, because I think just that look alone probably wouldn't have been enough to get the point across. Like I said, how the expressiveness of all these characters, the faces and the body language and the poses that Aparo uses, it shows you a lot about the characters themselves and what they're feeling and what they're probably thinking. Whereas in like this, you know, you couldn't get this from that face. You wouldn't have gotten that. So you needed that word balloon. This was absolutely necessary. And again, that's why, you know, this issue is so cool, because even though Byrne is trying to do the Larry Hama thing and make it a silent issue, even he knows sometimes there's just no way around it. You need the dialogue. And there it is right there. Get out. And then, you know, actually probably the second most potent page in the whole issue after the one of seeing Batman crucified in that splash is this one. You know, his friend is dead, and he finally does what he probably has wanted to do many years, is to see who he truly is. But we see it, and it's like, you know, for Jim Gordon, this is who Batman is. But to us, we know, wait a minute, that face, that hair, that's not Bruce Wayne. That's not Batman. What's going on here? What is this? You know, are we being hoodwinked? What is this? But yet to everyone else, it is Batman, because Jim Gordon never knew his real identity. And so for him, he's mourning as if he's lost his friend. And yet he doesn't even realize his friend is not dead, or at least he's not here. You know, this isn't him, but he doesn't know that. And again, that adds such context and such a pretext of, like, you know, mystery to the story. Now you got a mystery. Now, you know, we've been reading the story thinking it was Batman, that it was Bruce Wayne, because you saw at the mansion, you know, he wasn't there. He wasn't in the Batcave. Alfred saw that, you know. So we're wondering, is it really him? Is Bruce Wayne really that? And now we find out he's not. Now it's a mystery. Where, you know, who is this guy? Why is he wearing a Batman suit? Where is Bruce Wayne? Where is Batman really at? Is he still alive, or is he dead somewhere else? What's going on? You know, there's all this mystery now that has been created from one simple panel. One panel, and it's now everything that we thought we knew is gone, and it's like, now it's a mystery. It's a murder mystery. Who is this guy? Who killed him? Why is he dressed as Batman? And where is the real Batman? That's what you're asking yourself now. Again, Jim Gordon isn't asking himself this right now, because he doesn't know that that's not the real Batman. Again, just a masterful thing that Byrne and Aparo have done here. Again, without a single lick of dialogue, and they've just created all this mystery and tension from a simple reveal like that. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. And of course, now we come to the thing. So the bat signal goes out. And is that Batman there? And it's like, but wait a minute, look at it. He looks a little pudgy, a little too pudgy to be Batman. What is this? Is this another? And what's this board doing on this guy? What is going on here? Who is another? Is this the guy who killed the other one? Again, all the questions that come of this when you see this, you have no answers, and there's no dialogue to give you any reference points on what might be happening here. It's all you're completely perplexed at what is going on. Who is this guy? Why is he wearing a Batman suit? Did he have something to do with the other guy's death? Does he know where the real Batman is? Why is there a board pressing on his chest? And then, of course, we go to the next page, and there it is. That's probably why. Boom. And then, some rubble comes down, and people see it, and like right there, a piece of the mask, and that's where the story ends. So now we have another guy killed wearing a Batman costume. What is going on? What is happening? Where is Batman in all this? So, it's like a whole issue where we thought we saw Batman, and Batman wasn't even in the issue at all. His costume was, but he wasn't. And there's so many people who now think Batman's dead, but he's not. Or at least not in any way that we know. Again, just a beautiful way to set this up, creating a whole mystery around all of this, around what looked like it was just a silent story of the death of Batman, and instead it's the opening salvo to a great mystery of people who are wearing Batman costumes and being killed. Why? What is going on? And where is Batman? Just a beautiful way of setting this story up. And again, Aparo art, even here, and again, look at the expressiveness in the faces. Even here with the face getting partially cut off. And yet you still can feel the emotions that this person is showing, by having that piece of the cowl in his hands. That's the power of a great artist who knows how to visually do storytelling. This is something that you don't see a lot of anymore in more modern work. They couldn't do an issue that is virtually silent and rely on the camera angles, the expressiveness of the faces, and the way to visually storytell what they need to tell to get the story across. These guys, they don't have that in them. That's where guys like Jim Aparo and Mike DiCarlo and even John Byrne, they could do this stuff because they understood. They understood the mechanics. They understood all the fine details in what sequential storytelling is. For them, it wasn't just, drawing pictures in boxes. It was, there's a way you have to do this. And they understood that. And there's no better way to show that you know how to do that than with an all silent issue like this. Or I guess you say almost all silent. But again, like I said, like right here, this was the page that once you got here, up to this point, you thought you knew what this story was, and now everything's turned on its head. And now it's a complete mystery. And now you're like, what's going on? And that makes you want to pick up the next part. I got to get part 2 now. I got to get part 2. I can't find, what's going on? And I love that. But again, just so many great moments. Again, the one time that words are necessary. That's a master classman of someone who understands the medium of comics. When you put in the dialogue, and when you need it, and when you don't. And then there are times when you could probably get away with not using any, and then there are times when you absolutely need the dialogue. And knowing that difference, knowing that standard, that is something you don't see anymore today. But again, just like so much, like I said, so much expressiveness in the entire issue, with the faces, Alfred's face here, Dick Grayson. The anger of the Penguin. I mean, look at it. Look at how angry he is. He feels like somebody stole something from him. He was robbed. You almost see that. That's what he's doing. Like, stop, like, how dare they? How dare they rob me of the privilege of ending Batman myself? You can feel it. You can hear him saying it. That's how great this is. Again, this is why Aparo was a master. And again, just the whole real world aspects of it, of what would happen, if he died, and the sleaziness of the media, the people in the emergency room trying to save him and not able to, again, like this scene right here, where the guy goes to move the mask, again, probably just on reflex, just to check him. I've got to check his head, got to check him for see if he's been injured in his head. And the guy's like, no, you can't do that. This is Batman. This isn't just anybody. You can't reveal his identity. Just a great moment. And of course, as I said, this right here, I mean, it blows you away. The first time I read this and saw that, I was blown away. I'm like, what? And you can see he's like drenched in the rain. He's been here for a while. This didn't just happen like, 2 minutes ago. He is soaked, with the way Aparo does that great soaking look on the costume here. Just, he's been here for a while, and that's just great stuff. But yeah, Batman 433, the first part of the Many Deaths of the Batman. Like I said, this is a storyline that not a lot of people give much credence to. But man, but there's so many great stories around it, and yet this is like kind of like the forgotten classic, And that's what I think I love about this so much, is it's just as good story-wise as any of those other stories that were going on around it, and yet so many people overlook this, and they shouldn't, because it is a very well-told story. John Byrne did a great job with this. Aparo's art, you're never going to find it better than this. Great cover by Byrne, and in fact, he did all three covers to all three parts. So I mean, you got John Byrne art, you got Aparo art, you got Byrne on the script. I mean, it's just all classic stuff by classic men who understood not just the Batman, but how to tell a comic story. The visual storytelling in this issue with virtually no dialogue is so important, and they hit it right out of the park. So definitely, again, I can't champion this enough. If you haven't ever read this story before, go out and read The Many Deaths of the Batman. You will not be sorry. Again, this is classic Batman stuff. John Byrne does the Batman right. Aparo's art is never been cleaner and more crisp than it is here. And like I said, just the visual storytelling you get in this specific issue of Silence, is just epic. This is what a silent issue wants to be. This is how they, if you're going to do a silent issue, you should read this to understand what it is that you need to do to make it work. So definitely, yeah, I got to say, you got to check it out. You got to go out and get Batman 433. And then, like I said, once you've read it, you're going to be like, oh, I got to get the rest of it. And so, like I said, just the overlooked classic storyline that came out right at the height of Batmania. And it's overlooked by so many people, but it's so good, and you definitely need to check it out. And there we have it. Another one in the books there for you folks. Batman 433, good stuff right there. And again, like I said, all this in tribute to my friend who I know as the biggest Batman fan that I know. So, I'm sure he would have loved this one. I'm sure he would have enjoyed this video. So, I'm glad to give that to you. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed checking that out. And let me know down below what you think. Do you think I'm on the money about this stuff? Do you think that the silent issue was a way to go, or do you think that it wasted an issue, by not having almost no dialogue in it? What do you think should be done? Do you think silent issues are cool, or do you think they're just a cheap way for a writer to get paid without having to do any of the work? I mean, what do you think? I want to know. Just drop me some comments down there below, and also drop me some likes if you like what you saw here. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more of this stuff that I'm putting out. I'll have some more for you very soon. I got another artistry appreciation I'm working on, and then I'm deciding what to do next with the next Why It's Great. I haven't got the next one quite lined up yet, but I'm sure I'll have one for you sooner than later. And after that, well, the sky's the limit. We'll have to see what comes. But I thank you all for joining me today. I hope you got some good enjoyment out of this one. A little stroll down memory lane. And I will be back soon with some more stuff. And until next time, take care.